What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with AC. We are here to preview the Atlanta Falcons versus the Philadelphia Eagles divisional round matchup. It's the number 1 seed versus the number 6 seed. We have a lot of storylines coming in this game. Of course, there's no Carson Wentz for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Falcons being the NFC champion from last season, and kind of, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man, that sort of storyline. And then also, the underdog is the number 1 seed. So we're going to discuss that. AC is going to let us know from an Eagles fan perspective how this game's going to go down. So throughout the wild card round, divisional round, and throughout the playoffs, I want to bring in as many fans as I can for the previews. It just so happens that AC is a part of this channel. So AC, bro, just let us know what you thought about the Eagles season, the expectations for the playoffs, and anything else you really want to add to that.
Well, it's crazy. We'll get into the game, but it's just nuts that a number 1 seed that lost 3 games and only lost 1 game without Wentz. Mind you, the 2 wins were absolutely atrocious wins. So I could still see somewhat why Atlanta is favored, but still, like, by 3 points, like at least like maybe 1.5, I'd be like, okay, but like it's getting up there and people are betting it. I read something today that 88% of people have money on one Vegas sportsbook, have money on the Falcons. They're underdog. And then obviously there's certain thing like ESPN has them at 69% chance of winning this game. Obviously that doesn't always work out, but I'm just saying the street or the market is picking the Falcons here. But if we're going to get into this season, there's no complaints. Like, I thought the Eagles were going to be good. I thought Carson Wentz was going to be good. Did I think he was going to be as good as he was? Not at all. It just seemed like everything was clicking with this offense. Peterson from the get-go, this offense was clicking and scoring a lot of points, and it made the defense look really good at the beginning because then you put other teams in pressure situations where they needed to pass. But because I did like the defense last year, I just thought we were so weak at corner position, which somewhat that still could be our downfall coming up here. But all in all, it's fun as an Eagles fan for the last 20 years. It's fun to wake up every Sunday and get a W. You know what I mean? Like, Mitch, you're used to it. You're used to like the last 10 years, every single week, it's been win, win, win. But it was nice this year, regardless of what happens moving forward. It was a nice season to wake up Sunday morning and have only 3 losses under our belt. And it was the year 2. I went to Philadelphia. I was there for the Giants kick. So all in all, it's been a great season. I think we had a weaker schedule. I kind of argued against it at the beginning because we were beating those weaker teams by a lot. But we did have a weak schedule at the beginning. But I think in some key games, the Rams game comes to mind. Obviously, Wentz played well, and the defense wasn't great, but I'd say the Rams was probably our best win. And then in games that we had to win, you know, the defense played horrible against the Giants. Eli was looking like Tom Brady against the Eagles defensive backs, and we needed to win that game, and that was when Foles played well. So now we're thinking, wow, like, this isn't good. Like, our defense is our problem. Remember everyone was saying that, Mitch? It was like, yeah, wow, after that New York game, okay, well, you won. Foles looked good, but the defense looked horrible. And that was kind of what everyone was talking about. And then you go to Oakland, and then it was like the defense played well. They probably should have lost that game if it wasn't for those like 2 fumbles in the red zone. But Foles looked so bad. Foles looked bad against Dallas. And now we're here. But I think what it comes down to, I think Wentz is the big storyline of this season, getting injured. It sucks, but I'm a guy who cheers for the logo and not individual players. Like, Wentz is one of my favorite players, but still, Philly for life, Eagles for life. So we got to push forward. But I think the second storyline was this defense. I don't think this defense gets enough credit. I think the front 4 get enough credit, but I don't think of all the injuries we've had this season on defense, losing our middle linebacker and having guys that have never even played for the Eagles, like Patrick Robinson, who I think is the most improved player on the defense. Jalen Mills definitely could get that because he's going against the number 1 guy, but he still can get beat. Like, double moves I'll be watching out for. That's the whole thing against the Eagles defense, is the double moves. But I really loved watching this defense play football. Malcolm Jenkins and Rodney McLeod, I think, underrated. A good 1-2 in the safety department. And Ronald Darby's been somewhat shaky, but he kind of came in at a weird time of the season. So I'll give him that. I do think our secondary is better than last year. We'll see, and it's going to have to be really good against the Falcons. But now we're here, first place seed. I got to take the week off last week, and now we're ready for this game, and it should be interesting.
Yeah, so the line is -3. That's a Eagles breakdown for the season from AC. Basically everything that happened this season, the whole Carson Wentz, the defense. Of course, next year we won't see Carson Wentz till next year, but it's going to be an interesting off-season storyline just to see the progression of the Eagles, what's going to happen with them next year. But we're focused on this game, Eagles, Falcons, and it would be nice for AC to wake up on what would be a Saturday and get another W, right? So it's the Falcons, it's the Eagles, and it's the bird game. What are you calling it? The bird show, the bird bowl?
Bird bowl.
Okay,
there's one every year it seems, especially in the NFC, right? Because the Seahawks, Seahawks normally has been played
Cardinals.
Atlanta, and then with the Cardinals in there, there's the NFC is where the bird bowls are. Except for I guess there's only one
Ravens.
Yeah, but there's that would be the only one in the AFC, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Is a dolphin a bird? I don't know. Probably not.
Bird Bowl, Falcons, Eagles. They've played each other before in the playoffs. Obviously not these teams, but I do remember
we played them.
The 04, 05, whatever you want to refer to it as, the NFC Championship, Mike Vick versus Donovan McNabb. I remember that game. So there's been games in the past. And then their last meeting, of course, was last year. A lot of people forget about this. Philadelphia Eagles. I remember this game because I bet on the Eagles in this game, AC.
Nice.
I remember this game. The Eagles beat an Atlanta Falcons team. They're at home. It was cold, and this offense couldn't really get it going against this Eagles defense, and the Eagles took it 24-16. That's going to be a big thing that we play into in this preview, just to see if there's any similarities. I know that there's different offensive coordinators and stuff like that, but there are a lot of similarities for both teams, and especially for Atlanta, who has a lot of the same personnel, especially on offense. So just going over some of the simple stuff, Eagles 7-1 at home. They did lose that one game in Week 17 against the Dallas Cowboys. That game doesn't really matter. So you could say it's 7-0 at home. So they've been really good at home regardless. The Falcons were 5-3 on the road in the regular season, 6-3 now overall. Big win in LA. Now LA, I will say this, is not like Philadelphia in terms of home field advantage. LA, they were only 4-4 in the regular season at home, now 4-5 overall. So that was a problem that we had to bring up in the recap of the Rams game. How did they fix that home field? Because it wasn't very effective for them. Matt Ryan's record at Lincoln Financial Field is 1-3. So that's some history for you. He is from Philadelphia, went to Boston College, but he is from Philadelphia. And he is used to the cold weather, I would say. He hasn't played it a lot in the NFL, but obviously he grew up in Philadelphia. He played in Boston, so he does have some familiarity with that. I don't know if it's the teams that he's played, if it's the home field. I don't know what it is, but he hasn't been successful there.
Yeah, and I did do some research, and he didn't win. I think he was 1-2, or I think he was 1-2. But those two losses were against Green Bay. One was a Matt Flynn era in 2013, because I looked this up. And in 2014, it was a game when the Packers at Lambeau were up like 24 points. And then Atlanta came back and made it interesting. So he has put up big stats in the cold. But just a interesting fact is that like a cold weather game would be probably like 2 or 3 and then below, which would be around like 34 Fahrenheit or below. That is what statisticians call a cold weather game. But it's weird. So it's been super cold in Philly, and now there's a warm front coming through where it's actually not going to be as cold as you would think it should be. Like if the game was played last week, it would be freezing, or that Dallas game looked really cold, right? So it's actually going to be a little warmer, and in games around that temperature outside, he's 7-6. So he's still played in that type of temperature, which I don't think it's going to affect it that much. But he still has a winning record, I guess, but he's lost a handful of games in the weather that we're expecting.
And regardless, I mean, just talking about, it's not only Matt Ryan, it's not only the Atlanta Falcons, but typically with dome teams, you see a big difference in the playoffs when they have to travel on the road. The home field thing for dome teams is the biggest of any team because they're not used to kind of playing in the conditions and playing outside. And also, they're just so much better in their dome because they're usually typically a fast team and, you know, they use their speed. And we saw it in the early 2000s. The huge thing was the Colts and Patriots and how the Colts were a dome team and how they couldn't travel to New England. So there's been like just things like that that have transpired throughout the course of the NFL where dome teams don't usually translate on the road, but the Falcons are kind of this different entity where they played all their games at home in the playoffs last year, but they did play the Rams this year, and they are a team with great experience. So it's going to be just a matter of measuring, okay, what matters more? Is it their dome a little bit more, or is it just their experience? And also, Nick Foles, at least one thing about Nick Foles, he did play one postseason game. He played in 2013. He played the Saints. He didn't play too bad.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, that was a last second field goal, I think, that they lost on.
Yeah, I remember watching it, but I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah, he drove them down the field to get them the winning points, and then I think they left too much time on the clock, and Brees just went like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah,
and then they kicked the winning one to win.
I remember him having like 2 touchdowns or something. He didn't throw an interception.
That was that Sheldon Brown hit on Reggie Brown, I think. Reggie Bush. Remember, he just
that was earlier than that because Reggie Bush was on a different team by then. That was 2013, so Reggie Bush would have been.
Oh, that was the other time we lost when I think maybe Garcia.
That must have been like 06.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, 07 or something. Okay, so those are kind of the simple stuff, and then going over the stats. Atlanta, 8th in offensive yardage, 14th in offensive points, 9th in yards on defense, and 8th in yards on 8th in points defensively. And then Philadelphia, 7th in yards. This doesn't obviously translate because Carson Wentz played a lot of this season. 7th in yards, tied for 2nd in points. Defensively, 4th in yards, also 4th in points. So those are the stats to know. And then just going over to one of the matchups, Philadelphia's offense versus Atlanta's defense, which might be the more interesting one. It depends on which take you kind of, which direction you go. Because this one I think has the most question marks just because of the quarterback position. But AC, how do you see this side of the ball playing out? What do you think Philadelphia has to do in order to move the ball against Atlanta and in order to be successful?
Well, first of all, they're gonna have to run the ball extremely well. And you know what, for all our running stats and watching the season, I don't know if you agree, but for them being a top 3 rushing team in the league, when you watch every game, it doesn't really feel like that. Would you agree? You know what I mean?
Eagles?
Like, yeah, like obviously their stats, their yards per carry, their yards.
Yeah, they're third in running offense.
But sometimes it doesn't feel that way because I guess they run the ball so much and they're a possession team that,
especially lately.
Well, yeah, and the last 4 or 5 games, it's been like it seems like they can't run the ball, right? And early on the season, it was like they had such a big lead that they just run the ball and be successful in the 3rd and 4th quarter.
And this is why I always say it. I mean, I've said it before. I don't think like the running game is as important as a lot of people make it out to be. I feel it's very inconsistent. I feel like you need to run the ball when you have to run. Like at the end of in the 4th quarter, when you're up by 10 points. And you need to run the ball. That's when you need to run the ball and you need to be successful running the ball. That's when the Eagles have been successful running the ball for the most part, is when they're kind of in the 4th quarter chipping away and kind of just letting the clock wind down with LeGarrette Blount and J.J. and whatever.
Well, and how many times late in those games did we see like those big 40, 50-yard runs?
Exactly.
And that gets a lot of yardage right there. So I guess I'll quickly break down the running because I do agree with you. The reason why I'm saying that, because if it's successful, we don't really need to think about Nick Foles, right?
True. Like if you could run the ball 30 times, then you run 100%. The ball 30 times. If you could run the ball every play, you run the ball every play. Also, just bringing up before you go to that, Jacksonville's #1 running offense, and they haven't been very good recently at all.
For sure.
So
because it's been and I think maybe they've toned down the carries for everyone. I'll say this. I think Jay Ajayi needs to prove, because I know you believe that he's not. Well, I guess you believe he's overrated. Not that he's
good. He's overrated, though, to me.
Yeah. So I think this is the game where he can prove that he is not overrated and he is good. LeGarrette Blount, it's tough because LeGarrette to me is really good when he gets 2 yards and then explodes. But when he gets stopped at the line, he seems to just kind of give up. Like other running backs you see to push forward, not that he gives up, because I don't think he does that. He just, you would think for how big he is, when he gets stopped like right away, it seems like he can't push forward. When I've seen Ajayi a little more so be able with quickness to get away from that stuff. So we'll have to see. I'm not too sold on that defensive line of Atlanta. Obviously, they have some good players like Grady Jarrett. Remember, we saw him in the Super Bowl. And Dontari Poe was a great addition. So inside, yes, but I think on the edges, they're not good. But I think they have a very underrated linebacking core that's going to be able to stop the run. And we're talking about the running backs, but I have to talk about the offensive line too, running the ball. Like Brandon Brooks was a Pro Bowler. He can get out and set the edge, like a lot of schemes where in the shotgun runs where we have pulling guards and pulling tackles, and Lane Johnson's just as quick as some of the running backs. So that's going to be, I think we're going to be able to run the ball somewhat, but if we don't, then it comes down to Foles. And I don't know what you think, but maybe you take this one first, what you think of the passing game and Foles, because what we've seen, he came out guns a-blazing, really, because that pass he made to get into field goal range against the Rams, and then the pass he made to kill the clock was awesome. And then the New York game, it's like, wow, this guy, maybe we're going to be fine. And then the last 2 games were like, this guy is it's almost like Bortles, Tyrod Taylor last week level, like literally so inaccurate. And you just could tell had no confidence whatsoever.
Yeah, confidence is obviously a big thing. I think early in the game, like you said, they're going to have to rely on the run game and just kind of maybe giving him a couple screens and short passes, kind of getting him into the game. But when I look at the pass game, that's why I feel like you guys will need to run the ball in this game to score points. And because I look at this Atlanta defense, and they've been pretty good against the pass all year. They've only given up 1 300-yard passer. We've talked about it. Aaron Rodgers is the only one, and that was a comeback game. And I look at the matchups across the board. I think you have like one big advantage, and that's Nelson Aguilar versus Brian Poole in the slot. Outside of that, usually Zach Ertz has been kind of that guy where he's been Mr. Consistent. But Keanu Neal is really good, and he's going to be a tough matchup if they do look at that and they say, okay, Neal, you're taking Ertz all game. So that's going to be kind of a draw to me. Like Ertz might make a couple plays. Neal might make a couple plays. Trufant is a good corner. Alfred is a good corner. So maybe if they, maybe they could get a couple deep plays. You never know. But when you watch that Rams game, Atlanta just seems so much faster than the Rams. They were all over the place. They were like just all over, just tipping balls down. Alfred, perfect like hand on the ball. Like Trufant just tackling a dude right when the ball's there. So their defense is confident. Their defense is tough. Their defense is hitting hard. And it's going to be tough in the passing game. I think, you might have to be a little bit more creative. And that's the thing. You don't have Darren Sproles. We talked about their injury report. You don't have Darren Sproles. A guy like Darren Sproles, where Atlanta has been one of the worst teams against running backs, as we've seen James White in the Super Bowl. And this season, even at times, they still rank as one of the bottom teams against running backs, even though they played well against Todd Gurley. The thing about the Rams and then the Eagles is where I look at the offense, and especially the passing offense, I'm like, is there anyone where you really need to stop on the Eagles that you like, if you don't stop this guy, you're going to lose? When it comes to the Rams, it's like, if you don't stop Gurley, you're going to lose the game. Like, Gurley is like the Julio or Gurley is like a Gronk, where
but I think, but we've seen
contain him.
We've seen all season, and it was just like it was obviously just it was the Carson Wentz.
It was Carson Wentz. That's the thing.
But he did it with so many different targets. You have Trey Burton, you have
that's
Clement,
what I want to see.
Alshon Jeffrey. That's what I'm saying. That could be any one of those guys, and I think. For the matchup, I think Jeffrey is gonna play well in this game, but we've seen Foles does not target him as much as he likes going to Aguilar a lot more.
He doesn't like going outside the numbers a lot. It seems.
And this is the first time Alshon Jeffrey's been in the playoffs, and so I heard an interview with him that he's pumped up. With Corey Clement could be interesting here because he leads all running backs in receptions, and he has 2 receiving touchdowns because they don't really throw to Jay. They do a couple times. I'd be interesting to see if they try to get Jay Ajayi a little more space and maybe throw him the ball a bit more because normally it's been Clement has been the 3rd down back, which for an undrafted free agent rookie, it's pretty impressive. So I think Foles just I'm just saying this. We have no chance, I don't think, if Foles plays the way he did in Oakland at all. Because Atlanta's obviously way better than Oakland. And I think the defense can play well, but we got to score at least 2 touchdowns to win this game, I think. Like I think you need 2 to be guaranteed a win because I don't think maybe 13 points might do it. 16 might do it with some field goals, but you're going to have to get into field goal range, right? We saw that even in,
and we know Atlanta can do that. It's just a matter of Atlanta getting in the end zone, which they haven't been very good at, which we'll discuss. But
no, because I think like the Eagles might give up a couple big plays. They've been prone to do that. But I just think that this offense, they're going to find it. However they do it, they need to score at least 2 touchdowns. And then I think maybe you can get a field goal. If you can put up 20 points and the defense plays solid, I think that's a win.
Just thinking about this right now, like I think the way to go is obviously you have a guy like Nick Foles. To me, it's almost like you need to go about it in Alex Smithing your way down the field. Like I think you just have your 3 tight ends on the field. Yeah. And you're just running it. And then you attack with the tight ends, just short passes, get into manageable 3rd downs. Because another thing with the Eagles has been they're only 3 of 25 their past 2 games with Nick Foles on 3rd down. Yeah. So if you could get in manageable situations where you're running the ball decently on 1st and 2nd down, and you throw some short passes to your receivers, to your tight ends, to your running backs, because the Falcons at the end of the day, they do play mainly the same defense as the Seahawks. And so they do kind of play a little bit off, and they'll let you kind of get those underneath things. They're just really good at tackling. So if the Eagles could get in those manageable situations, I think you have a chance to move the ball down the field.
And this just shows, just looking at this, Darren Sproles did he get injured week 2?
He got injured early in the season. I don't remember.
But I think it's week 1 or 2. But anyways, I'm pretty sure it was week 2. In 2 weeks or in a game and a half, he had 7 receptions for 73 yards.
Yeah.
Like it's just nuts in 2 games, game and a half. So it's hopefully, like this is another topic, but hopefully he comes back for one more year.
Okay. So we talked about the run game, the pass game, and I didn't really touch on the run game, but I just feel like getting them in manageable situations. And then I want to see, obviously as a Patriots fan, I'd love to see LeGarrette Blount just go off and rip it up. Yeah. But it's going to be tough. Falcons are good. They're just a good, solid defense. And it's going to be a matter of, you also didn't bring up like Kelsey's been amazing run blocking this year. And if they're going to be able to run the ball, it's simply because they're going to be able to overpower the defensive line of the Falcons, because the Falcons' defensive line is smaller. It's quicker. It's not really like, and again, the cold weather, if it were to be cold, would be beneficiary in the sense that maybe you just, you're tough and you out-grind them down the field. But I don't know. Their quickness is just we'll see how it translates against the Eagles.
And the one thing the last point for Eagles overs Falcons D is Vaitai, the left tackle, who obviously played most of the season because of Peters getting injured. Normally, I'm pretty sure Beasley's on that side, or I think Claiborne. Like Beasley's a linebacker, but obviously rushes the QB more than he does go into coverage. But Claiborne's on that side. I think that should be manageable. It could just be interesting if they try to bring more guys on the left side, how they pick up maybe blitzes, which I actually think would help Foles a bit better. I think the way to play Foles is to get pressure just with 4 guys and then drop back, because there's too many bodies. I think if they do blitz and Eagles can pick it up, I think that could be beneficial. And if they can just protect with
Falcons don't blitz a ton. They blitz a couple times.
I just look at those 4 guys, and the interior guys are their best guys, but that's where our line's the best, right? Is our center with Brooks.
Claiborne has proven if he can get 1 sack, he'll get 6. So
yeah, true. So it should be interesting because I'm not worried about Lane, because Lane's just going to be a beast.
Yeah, Lane's good. But Falcons are kind of, they're more of a matter of they don't have like the studs, but they have really good they have a really good rotation. Like they have Claiborne, they have McKinley, and they have Beasley. They have like 4 or 5 guys where they just kind of just all come in and they'll rush the passer, and they're like just their speed, like their constant speed every play because of that rotation is what gives defenses problems. And especially we've seen like Grady Jarrett against the Patriots was huge, but like the interior guys like Brandon Brooks shouldn't really have an issue. Kelsey has been better in the run game, but shouldn't really have an issue there either. So, and Poe only really plays on like first down. Like he doesn't like rush the passer. So yeah, so it's a lot of questions, but Vaitai I think is the big one for the Eagles on the offensive line in passing situations. And then again, just third down when it's 3rd and long, can they make a play? We'll have to see. And you never know. It was a bye week. They had a whole week off. They might have put new plays in, a new game plan. Do you think any of that will come into the Eagles' game plan offensively?
Yeah, and I think give credit to Peterson is that even when he came in, he kept some stuff from Chip Kelly because the players were used to it, especially offensively. He does have a good mind for someone who has a little experience coaching. Like he was just coaching high school, I think like 5-6 years ago, and now he's a head coach in the NFL. But they have been creative. Obviously, play calling's been bizarre at points. I can't think of the top of my head, but he does have these games where it's like, what the heck are you doing? Calling that, like not establishing the run. That's what I hope, because there's been games that we've struggled in and obviously end up coming back early. All of a sudden you're just throwing. He has that Andy Reid syndrome. Incomplete when you're not trying to establish the run early. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. But I will say, I'd like to see, I've been saying this all season, I'd like to see a little bit. I always clown Russell Wilson for doing this, but I also like to see if there's one-on-one, I want to see more shots to Alshon Jeffrey. Let's just see what this guy's about, because there hasn't been a lot this season of just one-on-one matchups, jump balls. Let's see what he can do. And obviously it's not a way to win games, but I do wish there'd be a little more trust, even with Carson Wentz.
Hey, when it's third and 15, and you're on your
one coverage,
and you're on your 35, just throw it up. You could get a PI. It's basically a punt if the guy.
Well, and that's the problem with not True Font, but Alford is prone to PI calls as well.
So, yeah, just Joe Flacco it.
Yeah, man. Someone's there. I just would like to see him because obviously he's a great receiver, and we've seen him make those jump ball catches this season. But obviously it's been more of a group effort when it comes to receiving. Okay,
so let's go with the Atlanta offense versus the Philadelphia defense. This for a lot of people is probably really intriguing. Atlanta's offense has kind of been, I would like to say that it's not very good, but a lot of people look at their reputation and they feel like, even I still hear the announcers every game like, oh, this Atlanta offense is so explosive. Every pregame show is like, oh, this Atlanta offense is so good. I'm like, have you watched like any games this year of the Atlanta Falcons? Like, they're not the same team that they were last year. They're a decent they're probably like a top 15 offense. Like, they're not a great offense. They have good players. They have Julio Jones, they have Devontae Freeman, they have Matt Ryan, they have Tevin Coleman, Mohamed Sanu. Yeah. They have good players. But for whatever reason, they're off at times. And their offensive coordinator has not been able to put together a consistent game plan from week in and week out. And he hasn't been able to come up week in and week out with different sort of plays that Kyle Shanahan would, where, every game they'd have different looks and different things that they would do. So this matchup is interesting because, of course, the Eagles, they've actually only surrendered just 16 points in their last 2 games total, but they were burned for 88 points in the 3 previous games.
Yeah.
So kind of, is the Eagles defense, what Eagles defense are we going to see? Is, I guess, a little bit of a question. I think it's going to be the better one, but we'll see. They did have tough time with the Giants for whatever reason, and the Rams. The Falcons, they've actually failed to score 24 points in their past 5 regular season games. They only scored 24 points in the wild card game. Before that, they scored 5 in a row, were less than 24 points. So if you're an Eagles fan, you're saying to yourself, we have a shot. Because if they can't score over 24 points, I mean, you're in the game, and no matter what, as long as you don't turn the ball over on special teams like the Rams did, which was a large part why they got their points. And actually, this season, they've had 20 points, fewer than 20 points 6 times this year. So that's something to take into account as well.
And I think just going to what you said about why everyone thinks this offense is so great, it's tough because when you look at them on paper, you know what I mean? You put that offense and just even forget it. You just put them, like, I was looking against the Eagles. Like, if I was starting a team, would I rather have Freeman or Tevin Coleman or Ajayi? Would I have Freeman and Tevin Coleman or Ajayi, Blunt, and Clement? Yeah. Like, it's Falcons. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, you take that. You look at even just this game, not Wentz, Ryan, but Foles, Ryan. Julio, Jeffrey. I'd even take Sanu over Torrey Smith. You know what I mean? Maybe Aguilar. Obviously, we have the tight end, and we probably have a better offensive line. But still, like, at the skill positions, it's easy to say that this offense is so explosive. But I agree with you. I think they won last week because of those turnovers. Yes, they scored when they needed to. And Freeman, their defense played great. And that offense was able to move the ball with Freeman in the second half. But like you mentioned, the Rams aren't very good at stopping the run because they never really had to because they were always winning.
And the thing about the Rams, they couldn't stop the run all year. I think they're one of the worst teams against the run, and that was their biggest weakness. But also the Eagles, we're going to bring it up. They're first against the run this year, so that's going to be something different. But the Atlanta offense, where they won that game last week, to me, was right after the half. They came out. They had an 8-minute drive. Yeah. They're just like run, short pass, run. Then that was the Julio touchdown. And then that's kind of where the game was over at that point because it was going to be really difficult for the way that the Rams were looking on offense to come back. Last year, this is where we're going to bring up last year. So we all know how good Atlanta's offense was last year. We've just kind of ripped them apart a little bit for how they played this year. The Eagles defense did play them last year, and you would say that their Eagles defense is better this year than they were last year, right?
It's similar. I think the huge differences last year, I would have to say, though, is Benny Logan at D tackle played really well, who's not there. So it's Jernigan or Bo Allen who was there. And Hicks played in that game and was very good, who was our middle linebacker.
And the corners, obviously, right?
And the corners, right? It was Mills did go against Jones last year, which is good. So there's some familiarity. And Jones did go off last year, but they still couldn't score. Like, Jones went off for 10 catches, 150 yards still. That's going to happen against this team and a talent like that. But he was probably healthier last year too. And then, like, McKelvin had a big interception. But other than that,
Leotis.
He didn't have a good – like, he's what Patrick Robinson is this year, but way better. That's why they brought McKelvin in, because they thought he was going to be what Patrick Robinson was doing for the Eagles this year, being more of a nickel guy flying around. So I think this defense is way better just maturity-wise, right? Like, Brandon Graham still keeps on going. And I think now with bringing in Long – Barnett, we have way more talented rushers that we can just interchange. Vinny Curry, who's a bit bigger. Like, we just have so many, like, it's almost like a line change sometimes. And I'll give credit to your guy, who's, I guess, my guy now too, because I'm a huge fan of him, is Chris Long. I think he brings so much more than just the football field, but has the last 3 weeks he
brings energy,
and he's been really good the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that, and brings experience.
Okay, so last year, my point was I was going to bring up is not only the run defense, but last year the Eagles pressured Matt Ryan. They had 2 sacks. They had 6 hits on Matt Ryan. And watching that game with the Rams, I know Aaron Donald is like the best defensive player in the league. But if there's a second best defensive tackle in the league, it's probably Fletcher Cox. So hopefully they, like for the Eagles' sake, they could replicate some of that, and he could get inside on these guards who Levitri is hurt. And I think their other guy might be hurt as well. Like they have backup guards playing. So if the Eagles, I know their edge rushers are really good, and they're going to get there at times, like Robert Quinn got there at times. But like for the Eagles, I think it starts in the middle, not only running against the run, but against the pass. If they can get a pressure from the middle, we know Matt Ryan, that's the Tom Brady thing, right? If you can get pressure up the middle, Tom Brady gets hit and all that stuff. Same for Matt Ryan. I mean, Matt Ryan isn't very mobile. He doesn't really move around. For any quarterback, if you can get in his face, especially a guy that's not mobile, he's not a Russell Wilson, and he's a pocket passer. If you can get pressure directly up the middle, that's going to be tough because they can't step up and they can't move around. If you get pressures off the edges, they can still move up in the pocket and move around. So Fletcher Cox, he's going to be big. And that's just something like I noticed about the Rams. Like Aaron Donald was in the face of the quarterback every single play. And I know Aaron Donald's a different beast when it comes to pass rushing, but I mean, Eagles could try and get some of the same things. So do you see that as well? Anything else you want to add in terms of the offensive line versus defensive line matchup?
No, you said it. You said it right. That the interior is going to be huge because we've seen Matt Ryan can step up in the pocket as well. Mm-hmm. But if you can take that away, I think all in all that's going to be huge. Like you said, Levitra being injured, who I think is a Pro Bowler or close to, one of the better guards probably I'll say in the NFC. He's definitely, I don't know, top 10 out of, if you're doubling up the guards or whatever, right guard, left guard. But yeah, we need to get pressure. I think we're going to bring a lot of blitzing too, which is going to mean
Schwartz does love to do that.
Yeah. Which we've seen. I was watching some tape from last year too, bringing Jenkins, even the safety, a little quicker. Kendricks seems to be able to get there. Bradham actually has been the guy that's been underrated for this defense. He's the guy that when Hicks left, he got Schwartz's ear. He's got, he's calling out the audibles and whatnot. And it's when I hear it's a group, everyone as a group kind of calling that out. But Bradham is normally stays at home for the most part. And it's always like Kendricks, who I think is super underrated. And it was hard to believe that he was going to they were talking about trading him, because if we didn't have him this year, I think it'd be a different story, because he can blitz and he can go into coverage. He can do a lot of things. Right. So I think it's going to be, if we can get to Ryan, I think it's a huge key, because our corners, like most corners, you can't cover for that long. You know what I mean? You can't cover for longer than 4 seconds, like especially against these receivers as well. And I'll just keep on bringing up that game against the Seahawks. That was the worst corner performance, safety performance, whatever. Well, because it's hard to guard for 15 seconds, cover your guy for like 20 seconds or whatever. So I think that's going to be a huge key. So hopefully Schwartz dials it up. And like you said, last year was a good indicator. Hopefully he dials it up, because
it may seem like we're talking a little bit too much about last year, but let's keep in mind that the Titans beat the Chiefs last year, and that ended up happening this year too. So
well, yeah, and you got to think too offensively.
And it's the same players almost.
It's the same players for the Falcons, right? Exact same. And Sarkisian
and a worse offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and Sarkisian was brought in to run a similar offense. That's why they brought him in, because they thought that he'd run a similar offense and not just change everything. So we'll see. We have seen at times though, and I do really like Freeman and I do like Coleman. Yeah. We have seen at times during that rough stretch with the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Giants that the Eagles can be run on too. Like we've seen it a couple of times. People like to say that like Marshawn Lynch was beast mode against us. He wasn't really. Yeah, he rushed for 100 yards, but he had 2 big runs for 20 yards, and the rest weren't that great. And he had 30 attempts. Same with Zeke. We held Zeke to 76. He had 1 run for 30 or something like that, and he was held in check.
And that's what I was just going to bring up was for the Eagles, it's no big plays. Like, you don't want to get beat on that double move by Julio for like the Amari Cooper 60-yard touchdown. You don't want to get beat for a 30-yard run or whatever. Because if Atlanta starts doing that to the Eagles, how is Nick Foles going to respond?
Yeah, true. I hope. Well, the problem is, though, the Eagles have been prone to giving up at least one big play a game and still winning. But obviously, most of that time it was with Wentz. Because it's going to be interesting. That's the key. And we'll get into the passing, but because I have a point for that. It's just, don't get beat deep. That's all you have to do. I'd rather give up a 10-yard slant instead of them faking a slant and then a slant and go, and then it's a 60-yard touchdown instead of a 10-yard first down.
Yeah, I think Atlanta, obviously, their pass game comes down to two players for the most part. It's Julio and it's Sanu.
Yeah.
And occasionally, you get Coleman and Freeman mixed in there on some screens or some swing passes and stuff like that. I don't think they've been nearly as creative with Coleman in the pass game, where he was amazing last year, and he hasn't done nearly enough. And I think that that's an area where they could take advantage of this Eagles defense. Is maybe, splitting Coleman out and using him as their third receiver, because Gabriel is hurt, even though he hasn't really been even an impact. It just seems like Matt Ryan is relying on Julio and Sanu. And I know when you have a guy like Julio, obviously, I think he should have a really good game. Yeah. Now, the thing about the Eagles is they can't really let him just go. He just can't get like 50-yard plays. Like if he gets like 10 to 15-yard catches, whatever, like he got 10 catches, 130 yards last year, I think. Something like that. So if it's around that range, again, they can still win this game. It's just a matter of the big plays. Another thing to bring up with their passing offense, Falcons are number 1 on third down. That's something just small to bring up. I don't know if that's because they're in manageable situations. I don't know the exact like stat. If this is a lot of 3rd and 10s or whatever. But when you have a guy like Julio, it helps for third down. And Sanu is a really underrated second option. So AC, what are the matchups? I don't know exactly the corner situation with the Eagles and who they like to put on who. And so, I was going to ask you, who are they going to put on Julio? Who are they going to put on Sanu? And then, obviously, I think Jenkins takes, Hooper.
Yeah, and Jenkins will fly around and play some man. But I think they might use him a little more over the top this week. So what Schwartz does, because I listened to this in his press conference, he only had this is probably the first big time receiver we've played since Odell in week 3. And in that, they started the game just having Jalen Mills cover him the whole game. And then they switched to Schwartz likes Darby or Mills, or I think for a bit of it, it was Reginald Douglas when Darby was out. He likes his guys just to be on one side and not hover around, not follow a guy. They did it only in week 3. For the rest of the time, I don't think so. I'd like to see Mills on Jones more quicker than Darby. And I need to see more of Darby, to be honest, because he had such a great start that first game until he got injured with his ankle. He did look good, and he has looked good at times, but that Rams game was one of his worst games of the season. But I'd like to see Mills, because Mills did go against them last year. And then I think Darby might be a better suited to go against Sanu for more underneath routes, or maybe even Patrick Robinson, because Patrick Robinson is a lot quicker. And I'd also like to see it stinks because obviously you're paying Darby and he's the big trade target, but I thought the secondary was at its best without Darby when they had the rookie Rasul Douglas playing on one side for the most part. And then after Darby got back, Rasul Douglas hasn't played a lot. Obviously, Rasul Douglas was playing against a lot of crappy teams that all they were doing is passing. So it may, obviously he's going to stand out a bit more. But yeah, so to answer your question, I think it will be Mills, but I think for the most part, they're just going to stay on their sides.
Okay. So do you see them doubling Julio all game, or just
I think they'll have I think they'll try to not maybe double him, but ever so often have, because it's just you can't really double in Schwartz's system.
Yeah, he blitzes too much.
And you just can't. So it's if I think we should be okay if Matt Ryan's getting the ball out of his hands in 2 to 3 seconds because of a blitz.
Yeah.
that's not a big play. You can't throw the ball deep
unless he breaks a tackle.
Well, no, or unless it's like for some reason Mills is jamming with no over the top help, and then like it's Jones is gone in one step, and you just lob it up. So it will be interesting. I think the defense is going to step up, and I think it's going to be key for this because I don't think the Eagles' offense is going to be able to score that much. So, but I do think this defense is going to stop the Falcons.
Okay. So last thing, final point for the Eagles defense. They are at home, averaging only 13.7 points allowed. I think that might even include last year, but this is like just this year for sure. So under 14 points allowed per game. So that's confidence booster for you Eagles fans. And yeah, I think we pretty much discussed like everything offensively, defensively. Any final thoughts, AC, on the game? And then give us your prediction for who's going to win. What's the score going to be? Who's the MVP?
The one thing I will say is that I'm somewhat prepared for them to lose because I do trust Vegas. You know, I'm a betting guy. My heart says that the Eagles are going to win, but I'm a betting guy, so I'm somewhat prepared to lose. Vegas normally gets it right. If Vegas says you're the favorite.
It's only 3 points, so you can't be like...
No, I know. But when you're the number 1 seed and number 6 seed. And I'm just saying that this team is so different without Wentz, so it kind of made, you know, obviously I want to see a Super Bowl, but it made things a bit easier that if we lost this game with Wentz, I'd be heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If we went all the way and then the 6 seed came in, we're probably huge favorites with Wentz and lost.
You would be at least 7-point favorite.
Yeah, I'd be heartbroken. So I think with Foles, I guess it's an easy excuse if something happens. But I do think Foles is going to play well enough. I think the defense is going to step up and maybe they're going to get some turnovers, but I do think they potentially can score. Kenyon Barner cannot fumble like Farrow did because that's when I would get upset. If we lost like that, like stupid mistakes, that'd be pissed me off. But I'm going to go, I think, what did I say on my thing? I said 17-13, did I say? Something like that. So I'm trying to get the same as their picks. But let's just say for this, I'll say I'm going to go 2014 because I think we're going to get 14. I'm going to go 2013.
For the Eagles, correct?
For the Eagles, yes.
Yeah. Okay. MVP?
Why don't we just say Nick Foles, man?
All right. For me, I'm also going with the Eagles. Surprisingly enough, I picked them in our picks. I'm going to go with them too. I just have this feeling about the Eagles. They're going to win this game. I don't know what it was.
You changed your tune, man.
No, I changed my tune just because
well, you thought it was going to be the Saints or Panthers, basically.
That, and I also just kind of like, I don't know, one day I was just like, I don't know, the Eagles are just going to win. I don't know why the Eagles are going to, like, one of those days where you just wait, maybe it's just me. I have this with sports sometimes where I just wake up and I'm like, the Eagles are going to win. I don't know why, but anyways.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's right.
Yeah, so the Eagles, I have them winning 16-13. Which is close to your original score. I think this is going to be a very defensive game. I think this is going to be a defensive game where you'll actually enjoy it, though. This isn't going to be like Jacksonville, Buffalo. This is going to be like every coaching decision, every play is like big and magnified. I think there's going to be a lot of field goals. I think offenses may be able to move the ball a little bit, but they'll be kicking some field goals. And I think, there'll be touchdowns for each side. Only one, though. I think, maybe if I just throw it out there, I think Jay Ajayi gets one of them, and Julio gets the other. So those would be the touchdowns. And then for the MVP of the game, I'm going to go with Fletcher Cox. And I think it's going to be a defensive game. I think if the Eagles, if this is going to come true, I think the Eagles also need to maybe get 1 or 2 turnovers. And as we've seen, Matt Ryan has not been good, especially in the red zone.
Yeah.
He's thrown a lot of interceptions in the red zone. The Eagles can get a couple interceptions or a fumble or something, then you're well on your way to winning. Atlanta, same goes, because if Nick Foles throws an interception, especially early on, and if they get a lead on the Eagles, that's going to be big. So Atlanta fans, we're picking the Eagles. Don't worry about it. It could go either way. I could easily pick the Falcons. AC is an Eagles fan, so I don't expect him to pick the Falcons.
No, but I do. It's watching the Eagles. If Foles just craps the bed, there's no chance they win this game. if they play like they did against Oakland, there's no chance they win this game at all.
True. And if the Falcons come out and they get 2 touchdowns, that's not good.
Like, yeah, exactly. Because Foles won't be able to play from behind. He's 56%, 537, 5 TDs, 2 interceptions. But I think 4 of those TDs came in one game. So and it's just like his completion percentage. Like, it's just, I don't know, man.
And also the thing for this game is just like the reason why I'm picking the Eagles is I feel like this game is never going to get out of reach for them. And I just think when it comes down to it, when the game is going to be close like that, I just favor the home team. And I favor the team with that like inner drive. It seems like the Eagles have more of that, like something to prove in this game
for sure
than the Falcons do to me. So,
well, and I think the Falcons too are probably shitting the bed a bit, being like, how are we favorites?
Even though,
like, no, but like the Falcons are putting on their offensive tape, watching their crappy plays, and then they're putting on the defense.
Funny about that, AC, is people are like, wow, the Falcons are so dangerous after that game. I'm like, are you like, did I watch the same game as you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's nothing I'm saying. And then when you turn on and be like watching the Eagles defense, you know, it could be a different, like, I'd be like, how are we favored? But obviously, like you said, 3 points. I'm interesting to see how high it does go up. I think it might come down because a lot of the money is on, obviously, Atlanta. But I might have to, I don't like to bet on the games. But I might have
that earlier. I was like, I was thinking about betting on the Eagles.
No, I know, but most people, like, I just think a lot of like big bettors, they just like to go the favorite, right? Trust Vegas, I guess. Because, well, especially there has to be tons of action for it to move from 2.5 to up to 3, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That means let's just see exactly at this moment, 3:18 Pacific time on Wednesday. Oh, it's at 3 still. And hasn't come down. It's come down a bit. Anyways, right. But I'd take the under for sure. It's hovering at 40. I don't know. Maybe why not just do a parlay for the Eagles just for fun? Under Eagles money line. Yeah.
Okay, guys. That's it for the Eagles Falcons preview. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You can also follow AC on Twitter. The link is in the description if you want to check him out on Twitter. Give him a follow. And, you know, go cheer for your team. Good luck either way. If it's the Eagles, go Eagles. If it's the Falcons, go Falcons. I have no dog in the fight yet.
Yeah.
So, anyways, thanks, guys, for joining us. Once again, hit the subscribe button, like, and peace out.